Some 20 years back, some 20 years back, everybody used to speak about a socialist form, a democratic form, or a participative style of business institutions where the government and the private investors used to be together. But slowly, during the last 1.5 decade or 2 decades, precisely, the world is moving towards capitalism. You can understand why I am mentioning this. The very word of capitalism makes us to think differently, and the priorities of the business organizations are also going to be different. But incidentally, the present day business is absolutely rests upon, based on knowledge. We are talking about knowledge-based business, knowledge-based manpower, and the knowledge-based world. Knowledge has become the most precious commodity, rather. I'm using the word commodity because people started trading with knowledge also today. As a result of that, knowledge has become the most valuable thing across the globe. As a result of this, in the business world, we can see highly diversified and highly competitive business organizations. Across the globe, companies are into several types of business. There are incidents where companies like 3M, General Motors, Tata's from India, Birlas and Tata's from India, produces hundreds of products of hundreds of brands. In other words, they control the total market through different names. No doubt, they have invested so much of money. Today's business involves huge capital, huge capital. It is not very small amount. Investment runs in millions of dollars. Therefore, our investments are very huge, and the decisions that we take in business happens to be very expensive. Whatever the decision that we make, whether it is with precaution or haste, are going to determine the fate of the people who are dependent on this business. Further, we are not only having business of domestic nature. The order of the day is global, cross-cultural, multicultural, multinational, or what you can say, transnational organizations. For everything, there are manufacturers from different countries. Jokingly, people used to say that in a country like India, we have the participation of multinational corporations for producing products starting from potato chips to computer chips. Whether it is a potato chip or a computer chip, we have multinational branch, multinational competition, multinational presence in the market. And most of the business, 90% of the business today, are professionally managed, bearing a few family managed business. Even the so-called family owned companies are also managed by well-paid, highly educated professionals. Therefore, I can say today's business is managed by professionals. Managing business has become a profession. This was the situation in business before the occurrence of an unheard, unexpected, unpredicted event like COVID-19. Many a time when an incident of this type happens, people take it as a crisis. And they say already there is a crisis management team in our organization, and the crisis management team will take care of that. But the reality is that COVID-19 was not like any other crisis the world has witnessed so far. It is not like any crisis that the industry has experienced so far since thousands of years. The crisis management system that we have developed in all the organizations, the so-called highly professional organizations, have failed. There was an evidence to say that through an international research concluded very recently, about 72% of the multinational corporations themselves are not prepared for an event of this kind. That means what I am going to talk to you in this title is not about crisis management. Make sure. I'm not going to talk to you about a systematic method of managing crisis. Then what it is? I said it's a turbulence. A turbulence has no systematic rhyme or rhythm. The rhythm can be anything, the direction can be anything, and everything can be predicted or unpredicted. There is no certainty of any event. Before I take you to such an incident, let us make an attempt to understand what is this crisis management and what we do under crisis management. First, we must understand what is a crisis is all about for the purpose of understanding a turbulence. A turbulence is a different concept. If we know the crisis, then we can understand the impact of a turbulence. A crisis, let it be in business or life, is a sudden and unexpected event leading to a major unrest amongst the individuals at the workplace, what we call the organization. That can be called an organizational or business crisis. If something wrong happens in the working place, maybe because of the power failure, maybe because of the shortage of raw material, maybe because of the unrest and violence by the employees, or such events can be taken as a business crisis. Normally, a crisis is an event that is expected. Anybody can expect such unrests in business. Say, for instance, employees' unrest, financial crisis, technological crisis, because technology will definitely become redundant one day or the other. Financial crisis, political crisis, these things can be expected. It is not an unexpected thing. A crisis is an expected event that may lead to an unstable or a dangerous situation that affects individuals, groups, institutions, and the society at large. Say, for instance, what we call the bubble burst. What happened in 2008 in US economy has affected the entire world's economy, bearing few countries like India, where there was a robust agricultural and indigenous system of the economy that has saved the country. Most of the other countries were disturbed heavily because of the bubble burst in 2008. What I want to convey through this is, all the topics that we discuss systematically in a planned manner to handle an unexpected situation has become useless today. A crisis is unpredictable, but it is not unexpected. Crises are expected. Business never goes without risk, Business always accompanied with one or the other type of risk. Such risks collectively can be called crisis. But what I'm talking to you about, a turbulence now, A turbulence, business turbulence is an unpredicted, uncertain, strategic challenge before the business organizations. Why I'm using the word strategic challenge? The reason is strategy and strategy formulation is an exercise that involves an holistic, total approach towards building a business. Generally, in business parlance, strategic managers are identified with the names like general manager, CEO, chairman, president of the organization. They are the people who decide the fate of an organization by accepting or rejecting, by responding or not responding to the external pressures. And anything that happens to the business will ultimately attributed to these people. Hence, they are called the brain of the organization. They are called the power system of the organization. A turbulence is not a challenge for only marketing guys. It is not a challenge for finance guys. It is for the whole business. I mean, the CEOs, the chairmen, presidents, and the policymakers have experienced this heat. Again, I would like to make it clear. A crisis can be of any particular incident like demand recession, financial crunch, government changes in the government policy, violence or unrest among the employees, can be something that affects one industry, one department, one section, or one branch of a company. But this turbulence is very large in size and it is uncontrollable. A turbulence is a very large event which is uncontrollable. It was quite evident during the pandemic. Nobody was in a position to say that I am not hurt, I am not affected, and COVID has no influence on my business. It was large and uncontrollable. And the incident happened in a very high velocity and fluctuations. Turbulences comes normally in a fluctuating high velocity. So for instance, COVID-19 also of the same type. Sometimes the rate of increase in infection went alarmingly. All of a sudden, it has come down. The moment we started relaxing, thinking that first wave is over, second wave was already there. Now, at least we are confidently saying that during the second wave, things are under control and it is manageable. But who knows what's going to happen shortly. Since yesterday in Karnataka, there are reports saying that there is a slight increase in the positive rates. The rates, that too, in the festival season, the ensuing Dasara festival and other things, don't know what's going to happen. But the fluctuations are going to be very high in velocity. And the cascading effect of the turbulence is much higher than the crisis. Cascading effect. See, closure of one business leads to closure of another. Life was hurt, life was disturbed, everybody was in chaos. It was a high cascading effect that made people to experience the turbulence. Right now, I'm trying to say that a turbulence has a high cascading impact on the concerned system. And the patterns in which it happens is unclear. Patterns are not clear. Because If the patterns are clear, you can prepare for them. In management, we say systematic risk and unsystematic risk. If the risk is systematic, we can prepare, handle it easily. But in a turbulent situation, things cannot be expected in a known pattern. Patterns are totally different. Therefore, a turbulence creates a complex and ambiguous environment. Such was the environment that was created in front of us during the last 2 years or so. In a turbulent situation, not only the managers of business, but everybody has to respond. There is no other way. We need to respond. We have to recover and we have to thrive through. Companies have done this. Many companies have taken it as a threat for their survival. And about 43% of the SMEs across the globe got closed their business, shut their doors. And at the same time, some of the companies found opportunity for expansion and growth during this turbulence. A turbulence may be a boom to somebody and a bane to somebody. We need to discuss how this COVID-19 has created a turbulence and what are its implications for management people. Am I reaching you, dear audience?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Richard, sir.
Okay. If I'm reaching, it is okay. Otherwise, I'm simply talking to the screen, So please bear with me when I ask you to interact. If you speak to me, if you stop me at any point of time and ask questions, that will be a great motivation for me to react. COVID-19 made all the business people to respond very sharply. Those who responded quickly have survived and recovered, and some of them really got it as an opportunity also. Unprecedented growth in their business. You might have seen many companies have recorded threefold, fourfold increase in their net profit and the sales revenue during this COVID period. And surprisingly, everybody started asking, how is it? When everybody is reporting loss and every company got closed, how come one or two companies made so much of profit, so much of business? For somebody, it's a blessing. You'll be knowing luck favors only those who are prepared. Luck favors only for those who react, respond. So that response is the first thing that makes the result. But for COVID, before we responding, what are the consequences of this COVID on the industry and business? In toto, I'm trying to summarize everything before you. Because needless to speak about the COVID in detail, about the virus and its influence and how it spreads, what has happened, this is history. Nobody has predicted 2 years back. In 2019 December, we never thought of an history where a virus is going to be the hero of everything. Call it a hero or a villain, no problem. Somebody's hero is somebody's villain, no? It's not an issue. But what has happened? What problem has happened, or what changes had happened in our business? First thing, the business landscape has undergone a total change during this 2 years period. Business landscape has changed. Why I am telling business landscape has changed, For about 1 year, effectively, put together both the phases, most of the companies were under lockdown. Lockdown was an expression with which we were familiar only during the employee strike and all. But these days, the government has declared the lockdown. Companies have been closed. And many people have lost their livelihood, job loss, life loss. business loss of everything. And the demand for many products have vanished. There was no demand, absolute demand was disappeared. You can imagine what was the industry, which are the companies where the business was totally came to zero. Say for instance, tourism, hospitality, entertainment, absolute closure of this business. Millions of people were dependent on these industries for their livelihood. Transportation, bearing the essential services, healthcare related transportation, absolute transportation business came to stand still. Healthcare business got its boom. It was in the boom during the last 2-3 months. New hospitals, new clinics, pharmaceutical companies have flourished like anything. Therefore, change in the business landscape is one thing that has happened during this COVID-19. Another most important impact that we need to identify with this turbulence is disruption in everything. You will be knowing what is disruption. Disruption is something that replaces the existing thing by a new thing, by a new order, by a new product. Life itself got disrupted. Say for instance, my teaching passion, my teaching style has been disrupted because of this COVID. I used to enjoy my interaction with the audience or the students through an eye-to-eye conversation. We love to be in the midst of the students, but total disruption. It has changed the situation. We need to talk to an electronic screen today. And at home, where parents used to advise their children not to use the mobile phones, were forced to make their children to use the mobile phones. Absolute disruption. Therefore, everything got disrupted. I mean to say, replaced by something new, something different, something unexpected as an alternative. And the supply chain of many industries, many products got disturbed, choked. When the supply chain got choked, companies have experienced shortage of inputs for their business. The shortage of inputs for business created, again, closing down of the factories, job loss to employees, and totally an hampered international business. During this COVID-19, international business operations came to absolutely stand still, as every country was afraid of the possible infection from other countries. As a result, no international operations were carried out in the same scale as it was before the COVID. Totally life and livelihood crisis has happened. It is a livelihood crisis what we have experienced during the last 2 years. But any crisis, any crisis normally comes with a fresh challenge, fresh opportunities, provided we have the confidence, we have the ability to look into this as an opportunity. Therefore, a turbulence has created unexpected, alarming situation that forced all of us to think of innovation, innovative management. Innovation, the word, is very fascinating, highly impressive, but to be innovative, it is difficult. But now, there is a compulsion on the industry to make innovations. Normally, that too, in a rare situation, and in a situation for which we are not prepared. Normally, we used to speak about innovation under known incidents as it was indicated by Peter F. Drucker. You will be knowing Peter F. Drucker, an authority on management, came out with probable events that makes companies to go for innovation. Normally, companies go for innovation where there is a change in the industry and the market. Where there is a change in the industry and the market, because of the changes, say for instance, banking industry has undergone changes because of the changes in the technology. The technical innovations into banking industry forced every banker to think of innovative methods of banking. Market has changed because of the changes in the new type of services that are expected by the customer. Another thing that normally forces companies to go for innovation is demographic changes. You will be knowing demography is something concerned with the study of population. As the composition of the population changes, companies were forced to go for changes in their strategies. You will be knowing, we normally study about Generation X, Generation Y, and the modern millennials cohorts, millennial cohorts. As the generation changes, their expectations changes, and for the changing needs of the market, companies were forced to go for innovation. That was in the normal situation. When the new knowledge emerges, we have to think differently. Say for instance, e-commerce, e-business, e-banking. These are the new areas where we were not familiar. We were forced to think of such things. When I was a student, there was nothing like artificial intelligence. If somebody speaks of artificial intelligence, you used to think, look at them as a liar, something artificial, something natural. But today, artificial intelligence has become a very powerful expression. We were not aware of internet. Net means connectivity during those days, but today we have internet of things. Bitcoins were not known to us. Cryptocurrency was never heard of by any of us, people of my age. I'm not referring to everybody. But these changes in this knowledge made companies to think of innovation, innovative business strategies. Further, changes in the perceptual changes of both the business, customers, and the society invariably made companies to go for innovation. Needless to say, what is innovation? Innovation is to go for something new, maybe new to you or new to the world, making something new to happen with the help of inventions. When inventions are put into practice, when inventions are applied for solving a problem or creating an opportunity, that can be called an innovation. But today, innovations are happening, or we need to be innovative for a different reason. The reason before us is COVID-19. COVID-19 has created an unexpected, unprecedented situation that has forced all of us to go for innovative strategies in business. No substitute for innovation. Believe me, I don't know how many of you agree. In business, there is a saying. In the name of business, everybody has to do only two things. Business involves only two things. I'm telling this to commerce and management teachers. Business involves only two things. They are innovation and marketing. One thing is innovation, other one is marketing. Totally, you can call it business. That's it. No more. But today, we are forced to get into innovation for a reason other than what we knew so far. The reason is a small virus that entered into India after 30th January 2020, believed to be from China. It is believed that it has come from China, but till today, China is not endorsing that. What had happened on the India's life after this? When COVID touched India during January or the December 9, 2019, Indian economy, we have to accept however painful it is, was at strain. It was not that bright. Our inflation was very high. Our unemployment rate was high. Despite of so much progress on the other side, we were experiencing little strain. In addition to that existing economic strain, COVID made us to go for lockdown. Unprecedented, unexpected, closure of life. I'm using the word closure of life. That induced starvation. You know how many people have died on their way to home from the place of work. How many people have lost their dependents due to ill health, violence. Violence has also happened because of survival during this time. And it has increased indebtedness. Not only the families, even the country has become highly indebted because of this COVID. As there is a persistent loss of income across the industry, across the economy, there is a contraction of demand for all products. I'm generalizing. I'm not very particular about any industry. Take it automobile, take it as textile, tourism, education, entertainment, what not. Let it be food processing. Even food processing industry for some time experienced this. All types of industries have experienced a contraction in their demand for the products. Such a situation where people are starved off, people are unemployed, companies became bankrupt, banks have been closed, hospital beds have become shortage, patients were made to die on the street or inside the ambulance. It is most unfortunate to once again think about the queue in front of burial grounds, graveyards. Am I reaching? Can you follow me? Am I boring?
No,
No,
sir.
sir.
Following,
Yes,
sir.
Yes.
This is an unprecedented event. Many pundits have equated this with something that we have not seen, we have heard of, read it in the story, that is the Great Depression of 1930. It was the Great Depression of 1930 that was equated. Almost after 100 years, 90 years or so, we are witnessing this kind of an incident for which no management graduate, no B school has developed a solution. No management pundit have predicted. Forget about management pundit. Whenever we speak of surprising events, we think of who is the author of that book, Cultural Shock. Who is that? I will recall and tell you. Even the so-called predictors, future tellers, have not predicted what's going to happen and how it is going to happen. Okay. Alvin Toffler, future shocks, right? Even in his book, Toffler has not mentioned about a pandemic that's going to be so rampant across the globe, right? Therefore, this pandemic has created a turbulence across the globe for business. Say, for instance, incidentally, for the Indian economy, China is one of the largest exporter of raw material for many industries. Largest exporter. Even most of the e-commerce, e-business, softwares and the tools that we are using used to be procured from China. But China has become the center of attraction for all comments during these 2 years. And there was a stoppage of transition from China to India and other countries. That has created another shock for the industries in India. Shutting down of factories has damaged the supply chain, which has resulted in the drastic surge in the price of raw materials. Raw material prices went very high because of the closure of supply chain process. The worst hit sector is the aviation sector and the automobile companies. Aviation industry. Cancellation of trips. Thousands of trips have been cancelled during this period. As a result, people were made to stay back as and when in whatever position they are. Cancellation of orders, stoppage of payments. Just imagine a turbulence. Needless to prepare for explaining turbulence, Turbulence can happen in any pattern, in any direction. There was no rhythm. There is no prediction, but it has happened. Share market has witnessed an unprecedented loss. In 1 month, the highest loss anticipated was 33 lakh crores on 12th March 2020. Unprecedented. And 80% of the Indian companies experienced loss of cash flow. When there is no cash flow, they cannot make payments to their employees. Not that they are against their employees, they love their workers, they know their importance, but their hands are tied. They cannot make payments to their employees. Because of a sudden lockdown, even beloved employers are not in a position to go to the rescue of the sick employees and their families. That has created a lot of emotional loss of attachment between the employee and the employer, which is a threat to any business. And about 70% of the unorganized sector employees lost their job. About 43% of the gigs employees, you will be knowing gigs. Gigs are the temporary, part-time, seasonal workers. They lost their jobs. 50% of the companies were closed. All types of business, about 50% of the companies were closed permanently. This was the situation, and that situation corroborated with the condition already prevailing in India. Unless we know the ground reality, we cannot understand the problem properly. Unless we know the problem, we cannot address it appropriately. That's why I said innovative strategies can be made by people who have holistic understanding of the business. They must be able to look at it from the total perspective, not piecemeal, part by part. There are certain peculiar features that has increased the velocity of the COVID's impact in the Indian culture, Indian social structure. The first one is about 20% of the households in India are highly vulnerable to all sorts of ambiguities, crisis, even in the normal situation. Even in a normal situation, the Indian masses have financial, economic crisis, and about 20% of them were already there with the problem. For them, this pandemic has added the fuel to burn. Indian economy is predominantly dependent on informal sector. These informal sector people are from the slums, semi-urban pockets of the country. You will be knowing about 70 million people were on streets for about 15 days, walked about hundreds of kilometers of distance. And more than anything, not only Indian families, even Indian companies are not that good in terms of savings. Indian household savings are very low, inadequate to take a lockdown comfortably, bearing 5 to 10% of the population, 90% were put into hardship. Same is the case with the industry. About 90% of the industry was in crisis, disturbance. Even in the banking sector, the NPA was increased by several percentage from 72 to 84. NPA, non-performing assets, cancellation of repayments, stoppage of premiums led towards a financial deficit by 12%. A 12% deficit was recorded during that period. Forget about the foreign exchange and the crisis related to foreign affairs business, because it is not India alone. The entire world has experienced such a crisis during that time, and India was not an exception. Again and again, I am telling, Indian economy, particularly the small and the medium-sized industries, were put into hardship. More than 45% of the small-scale industries were closed. They are yet to start. Some of them are struggling to get back, and most of them have forgotten and got into new stream of life, new stream of business, some for good, some for bad. To sustain this pressure, the infrastructure available in India was not absolute, was not clear. Therefore, the turbulence has created an unprecedented, unimaginable situation in business and life. As a result of that, the time has come for us to think differently. Why it is to think differently? What are the precise summary of the challenges this turbulence brought before us? During this turbulence, the only one thing that was certain was uncertainty. Uncertainty was the only certain thing. Nothing is assured, nothing is guaranteed. Nobody can promise you that something is going to happen in the same way. Okay. When I said nobody can promise, I got the name Nostradamus. Even the 16th century great predictor Nostradamus, he has not predicted this virus. That's what I was about to say at that time. Neither Nostradamus nor Alvin Toffler were able to predict what's going to happen on business. What has happened? Look at this summary. The turbulence has created a great change in the social contracts. What does it mean? Social contracts means relationship between individuals and individuals, groups and groups, companies and their customers, companies and their employees, companies and their suppliers. This is a contract. This contract has broken during this period. Employers raised their hand and said, no, we are helpless, we can't do anything. Relatives, where were the relatives? There were nobody to come to the rescue of anybody. Social contracts were damaged because of this turbulence. Borrowers said, survival itself is the difficulty. From where can I pay you the interest, principal amount? Right? Governments, in most of the developed countries itself, governments have expressed their inability to solve the problem. Therefore, social contracts have vanished and the relationships got spoiled during this pandemic. This is one of the summary points that I want to mention. As a result of this pandemic, there is a change in the roles and the rules of life and business. Our roles have become something new today. And the rules of life, rules of business has also become something different. For instance, you are responsible for yourself. Nobody will come to you. Nobody will help you. Nobody will take care of you. What has become prominent is sanitize, wear a mask, keep social distance. That's the only thing today people are talking about. Nobody bothers about anybody. If I say this, it may not be absolute truth. This is the time where we have seen hundreds of people came out of their cells for helping others. Even we have seen kind hearts that came to the rescue of many people. But the life was a lesson during these 2 years, both for businessmen and the normal public. Therefore, roles have changed. Employer is no longer the custodian, he is only an employer, a facilitator, an opportunity creator. But nobody promised anybody that I will take care of your life and family. The roles have changed. Even the rules of business, rules of life, rules of investment has also become different because of this. Unpredicted capital requirements. Many companies have gone for innovative strategies. Say, for instance, during these days, what has become a compelling thing for everybody is protection of their employees' life on the one side and digitization of their business on the other. Both digitization and protection of employees' life and health called for huge investments. On the one side, there is shortage of capital. On the other side, there is huge demand for survival on capital. Therefore, unpredicted capital requirements were noticed during this period. And at the same time, in the market, what had happened? In the market, who is the king of the market, who is the source of business for everybody, the behavior has become unpredictable. Customers' behavior has become unpredictable. Nobody was in a certain mood to say that what the customers will do. During the pandemic, you will be knowing, we have seen job loss, income loss, life loss, things like that. But immediately after reopening, demand for automobiles. Inquire any automobile dealer, demand for automobile sector, a very high increase demand. Okay, rising demand for automobile, demand for real estate, All these things have made both life and business complex and complicated. This is the turbulence on business COVID-19 that has created a chaos, that has created a disturbance on business. I will stop on the first page now. If you have any queries, any comments, criticism.